Right. All right, I'd like to call a meeting to order. It's our regular council meeting for January 12th, 2026. Wishing everyone a happy new year. It's our first public meeting since the start of the year, so welcome back, everyone. Tonight we're going to start with a moment of reflection before we get into the approval of the agendas. So we'll start with a moment of reflection now. All right, thank you. So for the approval of the agendas, we have two consent agenda. Anyone wishing to make a motion or pull anything from the consent agenda? If not, a motion to approve as presented. If there's no further discussions or questions on the consent agenda, we'll call it the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Moving on to a regular meeting agenda, I've heard of no requests for additions, so a motion to approve the agenda is presented. Councillor Fox makes that motion as well. Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. For the good of council, does anyone have something they wish to share for the good of council? Anything regarding the holidays? Anything else that came up over the break? I do want to say thank you to administration for organizing and getting us all planned out for last week's strat planning, Thursday and Friday. Having some of the consultants in and going through some of the planning was very good to do again, and hopefully we can come up with a good plan in the near future. So look forward to more details on that. And anyone else have any comments to make? Nothing with sports or curling or school or rec. CEO Burdette.
The Junior A girls basketball team got silver on the weekend in a tournament in Hillspring. That was exciting. They played well and had a good time. So congratulations to them.
Any other thoughts, comments, exciting news besides the wind? I think we've had all enough wind for a little while, but I don't know if we have a lot of choice in the matter. All right, so if there's no other for the good of council comments, we'll move on to public hearings tonight, of which we have two, one's for a water rate bylaw and one's for a sewer bylaw. And tonight we will ask our Director of Operations to introduce bylaw 2012, after which we will open for a public hearing and then go from there. Brendan Orr, Director of Operations.
Thank you, Mayor. So tonight we are looking at bylaw 2012, being the bylaw of the town of Fort Macleod in the province of Alberta, known as the Water Utilities Services Bylaw, for the purpose of regulating the water utilities within the town of Fort Macleod. And we'd like to open this up to a public hearing, and then we would follow that with a second and third reading.
Did you want to do any brief highlights from the bylaw change before we get into the public hearing?
Yep, so I guess just a little bit on this. So the background, we have been looking at this for quite some time to look at surrounding communities, what our rates are at, as well as the rates in conjunction with our own costs within the town. So some of the details, it's proposed to at this point to maintain the inflationary costs in 2026 while we further investigate the fairness of the water use versus the cost burden and water conservation through consumption rates. So bylaw 2012 has been updated throughout the entire document with formatting upgrades as well as the text. And then the Schedule A from bylaw 1990 has been updated. So before there was some recommendations for several things. In this bylaw, we're just looking at changing the consumption rates in 2026, and that will be going, or we're presenting that it will go up for the residential water consumption rates, an increase of 3%, which will take it from $1 a cubic meter to $1.03. And for non-residential water consumption, that would be a 6% increase from $1 to $1.06. And then for out-of-town water consumption rates, we are looking at that to be increased to double the residential rate, and that will go from $1 to $2.06 per cubic meter. So this is proposed just for the 2026 year, in which will give us some more time to discuss the other things that we had in the background, and make sure that we're being thorough in our investigation of those other things. There was some additional cost changes within Schedule A that looked at the fees of doing different services from administrative point and making sure that those are meeting kind of market values.
Thank you very much, Brendan. I would at this point request motion from council to open the public hearing from bylaw 2012. It's our water utility services bylaw. Councilor Orr makes the motion. Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. So being this is a bylaw for the town of Fort Macleod and it's a public hearing, we request anyone wishing to speak for or against bylaw 2012 to please come to the mic, state your name, your position, and details of your position. Yeah, for sure. Go ahead.
Okay, John Van Driesten, the out-of-town water user to South Macleod here. Been on there for 50 years. My dad been hooked onto town services here back in the mid-70s, I guess. We've always had town water we have no water in our property. Like all South Macleod, there is no water. We punched holes everywhere. There's zero. So to get our operations up to where it is today, we had to have water or else move back in the 70s. And we talked to the town, which was a necessity for the town to at the time, to get a huge water user to flush the lines. And we've been on there ever since. We never had any issues. And we never had, and I hope we don't get any more issues. And the reason I'm up here now, I'm just kind of wondering why I got to pay double the water fee, I guess, from $1.06 to $2.06. I need a justifiable answer. I know I talked to Brendan and Anthony here last week, and they were saying that I'm not a town taxpayer. Understandable. If there's a major leak in the system, the town of Fort Macleod and taxpayers bear the grunt of that. I fully understand that. But with or without me, the town of Fort Macleod's going to pay for that water line break, any upgrades. I think we've hooked onto the services here years ago. We hopefully never let the town have any cost to it, but I think we bared the biggest grunt, if not all the cost, to hooking onto the services from town. And I really hope that we guys consider, I do agree there should be a difference, maybe a few cents more, but double seems very excessive to me. I'd like to have a decent reason, I guess, why I gotta pay double compared to the other ratepayers. Thanks so far.
So I assume you're speaking against the bylaw then? The way it is, obviously?
For the out-of-town services, yes.
And You got some explanation for why the difference from administration?
Explanation.
Did you get some explanation of why the difference from administration? The difference in pricing?
Why I'm getting charged that?
No, did you get some explanation as to the why?
Not really. Well, just because I'm not a ratepayer. That's the only ratepayer I had. That I'm not a ratepayer in the town of Fort McLeod. So I just kind of maybe missing a boat. If there's another explanation, yeah. Why do I get to pay double? Why, you know, a few cents I can understand, or 10, 15 cents more, but double seems very excessive to me. Because, you know, at 220, and was it 5 years ago, 6 years ago, they doubled their 80. They did a cost study project. They went from 58 cents to $1, and now it's going to 206 for 1 year. What's going to be next year? $3, $4. I use probably 11 to 1,500 cubic feet per month. So what used to be, you know, $700, $800 a month, 1,000 is going to be 2,500 to 3,000. So I think last year I got the paperwork with me. I think I spent $12,000 last year in water, and I don't think the town has got the capacity to service me. I believe, and I know. Well, I know. I hope to know. But yeah, and I think that this is just an extra bonus for the town to have me on there as a water user.
Any clarifying questions from council regarding the presentation? Council Patience?
Yeah, maybe just one. What do we charge for bulk water at the bulk water station for those that haul water?
It's $4.
Thank you.
Any other clarifying questions for the presenter? If none, anyone else wishing to speak for or against bylaw 2012? I'll ask another time. Anyone wishing to speak for or against bylaw 2012? If not, I'll request a motion from council to close the public hearing for bylaw 2012. Councilor Patience makes a motion. Call to question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. This item will get dealt with under consideration of delegations in the next portion of the agenda. Moving on to bylaw 2013, which is a similar but not similar bylaw. It's a sewer rate bylaw. So we'll ask our Director of Operations, Brendan Orr, to introduce this one to us and maybe summarize some of the changes.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So this is bylaw 2013. So the recommendation is that bylaw 2013, being a bylaw of the town of Fort McLeod in the province of Alberta, for the purpose of respecting the management and regulation of sewers within the town of Fort McLeod, is open to a public hearing. And then we would also like to have that followed with a second and third reading. So just some background. This one hasn't changed much as far as the rates. We did make some changes in the past, and we feel that we are on the right mark as far as the costing and what that takes to operate, and that we are meeting similar conditions as far as those communities surrounding us. So the recommendation here is that for the residential sewer flat rates as well as the commercial rates be increased at a 2% increase per year. We were looking originally to extend that out kind of into the future. The new recommendation as requested from council is that we put a limit on that. So what we've done is put a limit on the 2% increases until the year of 2028. And we'll also look at this during our annual operations budget to see how that is affecting, what the conditions are. And then if need be, we can reopen this bylaw and take a look at it. But then we will reopen it and take a look at it in 2028 for the 2029 year. So those rates again across the board, a 2% raise just to meet inflationary considerations.
Yeah, thank you very much. Being this is a public hearing, I'll request a motion from council to open the public hearing for bylaw 2013. Anyone prepared to make the motion? Councillor Patel makes the motion. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. This is a public hearing that is now open for bylaw 2013. It's a sewer utility services bylaw. Anyone wishing to speak for or against bylaw 2013? Asking second time, asking a third time. Seeing none, I'll request a motion from council to close the public hearing for bylaw 2013. Councillor Fox makes that motion. Call it the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Moving on to consideration of the public hearings that we just had. And the first we'll start with is bylaw 2012. And the recommendation from administration is to proceed with the second reading of bylaw 2012. Is we can have some discussion after we have the motion on the floor. Is anyone prepared to make a motion on bylaw 2012? Councillor Fox makes the motion. So the motion for second reading of bylaw 2012 is on the floor. Any further questions or discussion or debate on second reading of bylaw 2012, which includes some rate adjustments and consideration of the public hearing that we just had? Any comments, questions? Councillor Monteith?
Do other communities have out-of-town users attached to the water system? And if so, do we have any idea what the rates are?
This still works. When we did do our assessment, we did see some other towns that have them. I don't have those rates in front of me. Just for information purposes, in our assessment, when we did do, taking a look at the other communities, recall we looked at Fort McLeod, Claresholm, Pincher, Cardston. We had looked at a bunch of different ones to see how we compare. While we recognize that $1 to $2 is a big step from the one, but for example, Claresholm charges $1.78, Pincher Creek $1.30, Cardston $1.42, Nanton $2.25, Raymond $1.05, Diamond Valley $2.87, Tabor $1.16, and Coaldale $1.32. Just for some reference points on those are just for their regular users.
Regular in-town boundary users.
Yeah, those are just the in-town people.
Okay. I think a follow-up question to that is, like, Lethbridge supplies a lot of water outside of city proper, and I would assume that that's structured underneath a co-op, which would include capital investment from neighboring municipalities that would be part of the co-op, and then the rate would be not as high because they have such a co-op in place. Is that correct?
We've had a couple meetings with Lethbridge. They're looking well into the future to a time when Fort McLeod might feel like we would need to join Lethbridge's water production facility. And yeah, very similar, we would have a capital input to put the pipeline to get it there, and then the rate would be a co-op rate, which would have to be more than what Lethbridge pays, but we don't work into that level of detail. But yeah, they run a number of communities outside of their own in that manner.
And perhaps another follow-up question to that. Fort McLeod has 2 out-of-town water users, one of which I believe we have negotiated a new agreement with, and the other not as of yet.
Yes, we have one agreement in place.
Okay. And that said agreement, do we have a clear understanding how cost associated to the meter and the line from our main system to the town boundary, who covers those capital costs?
Yes, it is clearly outlined in the agreement. That ownership is at the meter point, which is in the vault, and then the line past that point is responsibility of the property owner. And that's for a number of reasons. And then, yeah, anything on that side of the line would have to be controlled by the property owner if they needed repair or anything like that. And part of that is because of our requirements to uphold our lines to a certain standard and our main lines and the flushing and all that's required to keep our ability to, be a water service provider to the community.
Councilor Ward, you have a question?
I know there's been some discussion of it in the past, but I thought I would raise it here so that we can just get it out on the table. I'm looking at the residential and non-residential flat rates, and there's variations within those depending upon the number of dwelling units or the number of units in a commercial setting. Can you share with us what was your frame of reference or your guidelines for the increases in either of those, depending upon the number of units? So for example, residential unit for flat rates was 40.87, and then when we go to 2 to 4 unit, it increases marginally. What was the basis for the increases up to residential units where there's 13 plus dwelling units? Is that clear?
Yeah, I think your question is clear. That structure was in place before. Brendan, are you understanding the question as far as these flat rates and the dwelling units? That was in place with the previous bylaw. So it wasn't something that we changed specifically for this one. Do I know specifically the rationale to why those rates hit certain parts? I don't recall why they went up in that fashion. Yeah, you didn't touch them. Yeah.
So history is nice, but we don't follow it blindly. There has to be some reasons for the incremental changes. The reason I ask that is a follow-up question is, just for consistency across the board to homeowners, there is the question of whether or not those residences that have multiple units in them, whether they should be paying an individualized, a per unit flat rate or a per meter flat rate. If we have a residential unit with 12 units in it and they're paying $103 a month, someone might look at that and say, wow, there's 12 households in that unit or in that complex. Perhaps their flat rate should be 12 times the single family dwelling. In other words, a flat rate per unit. And I know that we were going to do some looking at that, and maybe it's inconsequential in terms of the number for us to address that at this point, but I just thought I'd raise that so you could speak to it in this form.
Yeah, and I guess as you said, one of the things that we were considering originally was doing something to the flat rates. There have been some concerns, some questions, so I have asked some initial questions. We are looking into that, and I guess as part of this bylaw change, we haven't done anything to the flat rates. We've maintained those to give us some more time, like we were talking about over this 2026, to look into that some more, to look to see if it is consequential. And I can ask some more questions about where that originally came from, if that metric still makes sense, if that's based on a water use or what that looks like, versus like a multi-unit versus a single home dwelling, and what that encompasses. But as of this bylaw and this proposal, there was no change to those flat rates, and we were going to be looking at that going forward to see if some changes needed to be made there.
Thank you for that response. That explains that. And so just one other, unrelated, but it relates to the bylaw obviously, is for an out-of-town user, will there also be a classification between residential or non-residential flat rate? Classification?
That is not in the proposal at this time. And so because we have so few, we've put on this is what the rate is. So we could look at that, but as of right now, and I guess part of the questions that have come up is how many dwellings or what the usage is of that water that is going out of town users. But as of right now, and I guess that relates somewhat to what CAO Burdette was saying, was that we need to maintain our lines, and if it does go to multiple homes, then we need to look at making those a main line instead of just having a single line to several dwellings. So that's part of the things that we are looking at. So I don't know if that answers your question, but with this, we're not looking to distinguish that at this time, what type of user they are. We're just looking at that they're outside of town and the town is providing them with water.
So just to be clear, an out-of-town user is simply going to be charged the consumption rate, not a flat rate at this point.
They have a flat rate as well,
they
but
do?
the consumption rate is just considered in comparison to the residential rate. We're not looking right now at trying to distinguish them between residential, commercial.
It's there. Okay, thanks, Councillor Fox. Thank you.
Bylaw, second reading for bylaw 2012. The motion is on the floor. Any other comments or questions regarding the presentation? Councillor Monteith.
I know we've hashed this out for a long time, but I'm somewhat sympathetic to the doubling of the cost. We've phased it in for residents. So I'm open to phasing in here, but I do think if we do this, we need to come up with an agreement. Because right now we don't really have an agreement, and I think that leaves everyone wide open for a huge problem if something comes up. So in the interest of getting that done, I would say let's phase it in, look at what other communities are doing for out of town, and then we can always adjust this later.
So I think you would have to either make an amendment motion, because the motion's on the floor. And if that's approved by council, then that would be sympathetic in the second reading of the bylaw. So any other, if that's your desire, Councilor Monteith, otherwise.
Well, I think it needs to be higher than in town. The question is how much. So in the interim, I would say $1.25.
Okay, is that a motion to amend?
There's a motion to amend, yes.
Any discussion then? We have a motion to amend what has been proposed in bylaw 2012 to readjust the out-of-town user rate from $2.06 to $1.25.
As well as getting an agreement signed.
Is that on condition of the agreements?
Well, I don't want to put it that way, but we do need to get that agreement signed, so we can always play it by ear depending what happens later on.
I guess my question would be, what is the incentive to get the agreement signed?
Well, I would think it's better to negotiate a number than it is to have us arbitrarily say next year it's $2.06.
Okay. All right, any discussion on the motion, Councillor Patience?
I appreciate where John's coming from, and I also appreciate where Councillor Monteith is coming from. We also know that we've got millions of dollars in investment in our plants coming up in the next few years. And that's a contribution that won't be necessarily be able to be paid out of service fees alone, and it'll take additional funding from the municipality, which I believe was part of the impetus of looking at the rate adjustments and the sort of a modified increase to our rates. I wonder if the mover would consider perhaps going to $1.50.
Well, I would prefer to leave it the way it is. We can always look at it next year, but it's tough to go down, but it's easy to go up.
I think we're trying to go up now, and it's tough to go up as well. So I would be sympathetic to the request to go to $1.50 if the mover would so consider. Any other comments?
It was spoken of earlier that there is one out-of-town agreement in place already. What is the consumption rate in that agreement? Can that be disclosed? Is it consistent with the proposed bylaw?
It's consistent with the proposed.
Yep. Any other thoughts or questions on the motion that's on the floor?
I would be in favor of the $1.50 rate change.
Councillor Poitras?
Yes. I'm also sympathetic to Mr. Van Driesten and, this rather, I guess, doubling of the cost. So I agree that we should, maybe discuss this a little bit more. And so in the interim, I would lean more towards the $1.25 until the solution and agreements can be in place.
All right, a little bit of negotiating going on here. It's always fun, eh? So the mover, what is your position?
I say we go to vote, and if it defeats, then someone can make a new one.
Yeah, I think it'll be hard to, I'm not sure how that works. It's a similar motion. Never done it before, but we can do a second one. Councillor Fox?
Would you meet in the middle at $1.35?
No way. I think in the end, like $1.50, I think we all recognize there has to be a difference, right? The presenter recognizes there needs to be a difference. $1.50 in my mind is reasonable. When we're considering this water line is going through private property, and if I understand correctly, no easements, there could be some serious capital investment required to move this line if we need to develop that land for one reason or another, because going across land that the town currently owns, which will be a lot of extra expense for the town to also move and adjust. So I don't think we want to minimize the cost that this could be, but I also, it's been put in many years ago, and there's not been any development on that side of town since then. And I'm a bit concerned that we're going to run into some problems if we don't have some serious discussions on who pays for what when that day comes that we have to move that line. Because that's not going to be an easy fix.
Mr. Mayor, if I might, is the cost of capital from the point of metering not the cost carried by the customer?
Yeah, and that's all nice, but that could be a pretty pricey price tag, especially if we're moving the line and the owner doesn't require it to be moved on their end. So if all of a sudden there's a cost incurred that could be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars to move the line, because we need to make it into a laneway or something that makes sense. Like there's some serious implications, right? So that's where I'm not sure how much that's been thought through. See, Alberta?
One of the complexities with this situation with out-of-town water users is the fact that it is servicing multiple homes outside of the town boundary. And so there is a certain level of complexity with as far as the legal agreement goes, because as our water system and our rules and regulations around how we're supposed to deliver water, technically it's supposed to be a main line. And so we're trying to work out how that can work. If that can work, and so there are a number of things that we have to fine tune with our legal team and with our water licenses, and so I wouldn't, from an administrative perspective, I would love for there to be an incentive that we can an incentive that we can work out the agreement, right? And so whether that's, like I said, I don't know how you work that into this motion, but we do need to work on this agreement and we do need to take a look at this because there very well could be a reality where we as a water provider have to provide a line down to the property lines, because if it has to be a main line, then, I mean, unless in the agreement we put that entire cost on all 4 water users that are out of town, there's a lot to consider, right? Because the other out of water town user is just 1, and so we can go from the meter. It's going to be a pretty complicated issue. Our lawyers have given us lots of counsel on this, and they're not super. There's a lot of challenges to overcome before this agreement can be in place. I don't know if that helped anything.
Yeah, no, it's good, and I think some of the challenges is going to be like in a perfect world, we take the difference and put it into a reserve account for the day when we know it's going to have to move. Right? It shouldn't go into general revenue in a sense. It should be something that we're saying, hey, we need to make sure we have money to move that line eventually, because it's going to happen. I see on GIS, it's not even in the map. It's not showing where it is. So it's not properly even in the system as to where it is and how it's functioning, right? So that's a bit concerning for me, especially it's old infrastructure. It's been grandfathered in many years. And sure, it's been working, but on the other hand, how long will that be? And I'd rather, for the ratepayer, have a little bit proactive plan in place rather than a reactive plan. So I would still encourage the mover to consider $1.50, but if the mover would like a vote on the $1.25, then we'll go that direction. Councilor.
Difficult situation. I appreciate the work that has been done by administration, not only in recent years, but also this issue goes back at least 8 years of, in terms of trying to find a balance and a right way to deal with this. It's complicated. I can empathize with our out-of-town presenter today. Water is essential to having a farm, having a residence there. But I know that out-of-town rate has not been come to lightly. There are all of these other potential costs, and some of those can be addressed, hopefully in a individualized contract and an understanding obtained there. But as the mayor says, there will be substantial costs associated with providing this water out of town. And and I think that out of respect, and we've talked about this on numerous occasions, the rate that was arrived at was an attempt to try to take those things into account and try to start to find some equity given the costs that we are going to face and the user that's in place. So although it's difficult for the individual, I would have to lean towards maintaining the rate as presented in the original motion. So that's kind of where I stand on that.
Okay, so right now we have the motion to adjust the rate to $1.25. If the mover is firm on his motion, then we'll call that motion to question. Is there any other comments or debate on that? So I'll call the motion to question, which is an amendment to bylaw 2012. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion is defeated. Anyone prepared to make an alternate motion on the pricing?
I would move that the out-of-town consumption rate be increased to $1.50 as opposed to the $2.06 currently seen on the proposed bylaw.
Very good, thank you very much. Any further discussion on the proposed rate of $1.50? Councillor Orr?
We'll just ask administration, what impact will that have on the agreement that is currently in place with the other out-of-town user that we have?
In the the agreement that we do have, there is a portion where it talks about the ability to change things based on council making adjustments based on our bylaw. So I think that we would have to go back to that agreement, take a look at that. There might be some slight adjustments to the wording, but in that agreement, I think that there is room that, based on what council says, that we can go back in and we can change that.
Okay, the motion to adjust the rate to $1.50 for out-of-town users is on the table. Any further discussion or debate? Seeing none, we'll call it to question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. And so we'll go back to the original motion, which is to approve bylaw 2012, second reading. It's been amended to $1.50. Any further discussions or questions on bylaw 2012? Yes, correct. Second reading as amended. Any further discussion on 2012? There's lots of items in there. There's been a few questions. We can get some clarification on some of the units and so on, and that as we need. But if there's no further discussion, I'll call it to question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. That second reading of bylaw 2012. And following that, I will request a motion from council for third reading of bylaw 2012. Anyone prepared to make a motion for third reading? Councillor Patel makes the motion. Motion on the floor is to pass bylaw 2012 as amended. Any further discussion or debate? Third reading, yes. If there is no further debate or questions, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Bylaw 2012 has been carried and is declared passed. Moving on to bylaw 2013, a similar bylaw for sewer. Anyone prepared to make a motion for second reading of bylaw 2013? Councillor Poitras makes the motion. Any further discussion or questions on bylaw 2013? Councillor Patience has a question.
Yeah, just one, and this is to our operations manager. I didn't notice that we have a requirement for backflow prevention installations in new homes and when sewer lines are replaced in residential properties. I know it's not, we don't normally have that sort of a challenge, but it's become kind of a standard, especially with severe rainstorms, etc. And if you have infiltration into your wastewater system, you can get backup in certain areas. And the installation of backflow prevention is only a few dollars at the time of installation. I might suggest that we have our operations manager look into a potential amendment down the line. I don't want to hold up the bylaw, but I just think it was something that I think would be of major benefit to a homeowner for maybe 10 or 20 bucks for a check valve on installation. Could save them significant flood damage down the line. So that's my piece.
Thank you very much. So the motion is on the floor. In regarding to the comments made, Councillor Patience, would that not be included in the building codes? Yeah, because I thought it was standard in new home construction that.
Unless the code has changed, Mayor Fader,
Okay.
Recently. I know in multiple municipalities we've made that,
Okay.
that adjustment to our wastewater bylaw. So just a thought, just for review, and that's why I say that Brandon can certainly look into
Sure.
it and see if there's, if it would be advantageous. Other than that, I wasn't meant to hold up the bylaw.
No, all good. So motion is on the floor. Councillor Orr has a question.
Just a clarification question. I'm sure that it's all in order. On Schedule A, on the residential sewer flat rates, there's a hotel motel basic rate and then a hotel motel per unit rate. I think I understand what that means. If you could just explain to me how that would work in, say, a motel that's got 10 units.
So again, this is historical, so I'll give you my understanding. So for a hotel and motel, there is, for the whole building itself, There's the rate that would be at the $103. And then dependent on the size of the building, then for each room, there would be an additional amount to put on top of that.
All right, motion's on the floor. I'll call the motion to question. If there's no other comments or questions, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. I'll request a motion for third reading of bylaw 2013. Councillor Fox makes the motion. Any further discussion, debate, or questions? If not, call it the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you, everyone. Moving on to development permits, we have direct control development application, and we will request this be presented by our planner, Gavin Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. This evening we have for you a development permit application numbered 108-25 for GMS Mechanical. Their property was rezoned direct control last September. And in that direct control district, they were given several uses, one of which is being applied for tonight, and that's the storage of mechanical implements. The applicant is indicating in their application that this is to augment their existing facility and where the office is with extra equipment. Prior to this, they were storing equipment across the street, so it's not unknown in this vicinity that this equipment is around. In the circulation, there were no concerns of adjacent landowners, Alberta Transportation did send a response that they do need a roadside development permit, and that is captured in your conditions. And then as far as background, in the background report, you'll see also that there is a building that will be utilized on these 3 lots. And I'm just looking for any other little details. Beyond that, we have for you the conditions as listed. There is a development must conform with the land use bylaw. And all refuse and garbage storage areas shall be effectively screened until such time as collected and disposed. Referral decision from Alberta Transportation, as I mentioned. Applicant shall ensure all material equipment is contained on the site and does not create a nuisance to adjacent properties. Heavily soiled equipment shall be cleaned before placement on the lot. Placement of equipment shall be neat and orderly and shall not impede the vision of vehicle lines of sight for the motoring public. Equipment shall be placed far enough back from the highway that the winter maintenance will not be affected. Equipment shall not obstruct, interfere with other on-street parking or pedestrians. Equipment shall be weighted, blocked, tethered, or secured in such a way that it does not become a nuisance in high wind events. And the signage will require a separate application should they desire it. If you have any questions, I will be willing to answer them at this time.
I think we'll request a motion from council to approve as per the recommendation. Is anyone prepared to make that motion? Councilor Orr makes the motion. Anyone have any questions regarding this development permit application? Councilor Patience?
Mr. Scott, just reading the background on this particular piece, I just want to confirm that this is an approval. This isn't like a 2-year temporary permit.
Yeah, the prior one was under lease with another property owner, and that's why there was a time limit placed on it. This time they own the property and they're not asking for a timeline to be placed.
Very well. Any other comments or questions? Everyone's familiar with the property, understands what this may look like. If there's no further concerns or questions, I'll call it the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. It's approved as per the recommendations. Thank you, Planner Scott. Moving on to bylaw 2003, a community energy improvement bylaw, and our Director of Finance is quickly getting ready to introduce this bylaw to council.
Thank you, Mayor Fader. Good evening, Council. Tonight on the agenda is the first reading of our Community Energy Improvement Program bylaw. It's here. It's finally here. Director of Finance got it together and it's here for first reading. So for those councillors who were just elected in the last general election, I'll just give you a little bit of background. This was a grassroots it came from the grassroots. So members of the public, members of the community, members of the Environment Committee heard about other communities that had this type of initiative, and they spearheaded it, and they came forward to council and requested that we look into the program. So we did. I'll just give you a little bit of an overview on what the Community Energy Improvement Program is. So what this program does is it allows property owners to upgrade property with energy improvement projects. It's administered by Alberta Munis, which is our association that looks after most municipalities in Alberta, urbans and rurals. We do some administration of the program. We have taken out a $2 million line of credit to finance this program. The minimum that a residential property can apply for, the minimum is $3,000, residential or non-residential or farmland. All three types of properties are eligible to apply under this program. So the minimum is $3,000. And the maximum for residential is $50,000. That's the maximum that they can get out under this program with the town of Fort Macleod. And for non-residential or farmland, the maximum is $250,000. The maximum term that they have to repay this is 25 years per the bylaw. What happens is it's somewhat like a local improvement tax. So they apply for it through Alberta Munis. Alberta Munis does the administration, vets the project, checks out the contractor. They will notify the town that the project has been approved, and they may ask us to do a 50% prepayment to the contractor on the project, which we would do. We would take it out of the account that's got the line of credit linked to it, and we would pay the contractor. And then once the project is done, the amount of the total project would come to the town, and we put it on their property taxes in kind of similar to what we do with local improvement taxes. So the amount of the loan would be on their property taxes, and if they decided that they wanted to pay it back to the town over 25 years with interest, then we would take it every year. A line item would show on their property tax notice with that amount showing. So the interest that these program participants would pay is whatever the rate on our line of credit is, which currently in our agreement with our bank is prime minus a quarter. So they would pay, we wouldn't be making profit on the interest, we would just charge them whatever we're being charged from the bank. So they pay it on their tax notice. You can only apply once a year under this program for your property. And if a homeowner does a project and this community energy improvement program amount shows up on their taxes and they sell their property, the CEIP amount stays with the property. So the new homeowner would just continue paying it. And that would probably be disclosed at the point where they're buying the property and they get a tax certificate from the town, and they would see that there's a extra little bit that they would pay every year. So that's about it. So tonight we're asking for first reading on the bylaw, and then we will bring it back for second and third. And Miranda Day Chief and I, she's the executive assistant, as you all know, We are working on some communications for our website, but most of this heavy lifting is done by Alberta Munis. We do the bylaw, we pay the contractors, and then we put it on their taxes once a year once they're under this program. So it's not a huge amount of administration by us now that we've gotten the bylaw going. So that's going to be it. I will take all questions. Hopefully I can be of some assistance in trying to clarify some of this. Thank you.
Just a quick clarifying questions on the bylaw itself. We need 3 readings, right? No public hearing, and you're looking just for first reading today?
Yes.
Okay. And when will it come back for second and third, and how does that work?
I was going to bring it back later this month.
Okay. So it's just a little bit of time in between for,
If you guys want to give it all 3 readings tonight, that's fine with me. We're
Okay.
not going to do a public hearing. I think if everybody's happy with it, we could do all 3. It's more of an administrative bylaw than anything else, so.
so administration's given council the option. If we want to pass all 3 readings tonight, we can. If we want to do first reading tonight, let's give it some more time to think about it, chew on it, and ask any questions before second and third reading. We can do that as well. So I'll start with requesting a motion tonight for first reading of bylaw 2003. Councillor Fox makes that motion. Questions for administration? Any questions on bylaw 2003? Councillor Poitras?
Yeah, thank you, Chris. In the bylaw, it says that the town will, let's see, Town of Fort McLeod will repay the indebtedness over a period of 25 years in monthly installments with interest not to exceed 10%. Now, if this loan is based on prime rate, God forbid prime rate should ever go above 10%, in that extreme scenario, what would we have to do then? Still keep it under 10%?
I guess that would be up to council. I would probably bring the bylaw back and amend. And I guess council could grandfather people in who are already under the program, but that would be a council decision of the day.
Because projects would be locked in at an interest rate when they started, right? It's not variable through the 25 years. Or is it variable? It's variable?
The way we finance it is through our line of credit. Like what we've paid the contractor would be solid, but what we're paying back, because we receive it from the taxpayer and then we pay the line of credit back, it would be, I would be charging them the rate of the day on whatever we were getting charged from our line of credit. So if things go sideways and prime rate goes past 10% or 10.25, then I would be coming back to council, but let's all hope for the best.
Councillor Monteith?
I only have 3 questions. The 416 says we're paying monthly installments, but we're collecting the money yearly. So I'm just wondering about that. It says we're going to pay it off over 25 years, but we have a line of credit, so presumably that will be going up and down at all the time. So how do you determine 25 years? And is this going to be on the title or just on tax notices?
So it's just on title, or it's just on tax notices. We don't do any legal liens on title or encumbrances on title. The 25 years is how long this program will last. So there had to be an end date. So it's kind of like our tax incentive. We look at it every 3 years based on the cycle. So 25 years, it is. It's not a fixed loan. Like it's a line of credit. So it's going to go up and down. We're going to get money in. We're going to have money going out. And there's going to be people who are going to start in year 5 or year 10. So if they go for 25 years, I mean, we're gonna have to bring this back. The wording isn't perfect for the timelines and the duration. And then payments too, yeah. It says we were gonna be making monthly payments. That's kind of how you would do it if it was not a line of credit, but we went with a line of credit. So we would pay probably whatever we owe so that we would, how am I gonna explain this?
Well, on a line of credit, the minimum you have to pay is the interest. So conceivably, you could set up so you're paying interest, and then when you get the tax money in June, you can make a lump sum payment. But I'm just thinking, if you're recalculating all the time, especially if more people come on, you're gonna be spending a lot of time figuring out what to pay. So I'm just trying to think of a way to simplify it for you.
So, sorry, so you're, this thing hates me. So you're right, Jim. We would probably, when somebody took out a loan, we would pay the amount out of our line of credit. Interest would come, interest would go. We would pay the interest, well, would we pay the interest? We'd probably wait till the end of the year, see how much interest was accrued on that loan, and that's what we would charge the taxpayer. How much interest we paid on our line of credit based on your loan. So I would have to have spreadsheets, and I would have to calculate every month. So I'm not under the assumption that we're going to have hundreds of these applications. So I guess I'm going on the premise that I'm gonna have a few extra spreadsheets, just like I do with the tax incentive program, and that I'll calculate it and we'll put it on the taxes every year. I don't think it's gonna be a huge burden, and I think it should be okay.
Okay, well, if you're happy with it, that's fine. It just can't be cumbersome if it gets too complicated.
Yeah, I think the first part where I had to write this bylaw and that was the worst part. That was where I really struggled, but the number stuff I'm gonna be okay with.
Any other questions for Councillor Monteith? Did you get answers to all your questions? Okay. Councillor Patience?
Thanks, Mayor Fader. Just two questions, Chris. Does this impact our borrowing limit as a municipality?
No.
Okay. And as it's a line of credit, two parts, I guess. Will it have to be, the bylaw have to be renewed every year as a typical line of credit would?
So this bylaw is built into our credit agreement with the CIBC, which is our bank, and that gets renewed every year. The line of it's a $2 million maximum line of credit in our credit agreement with the bank. So they don't care what it's at.
And then I'm not sure this is a bank thing. I'm just wondering if this is an MGA thing or if the line of credit the borrowing bylaw has to be renewed every year on a line of credit. I think it might be something you want to look into. And I guess the other question is, are we certain this does not require a public hearing?
So, sorry, I just caught on. We do have a borrowing bylaw for this line of credit. This is the tax part of it. Yeah, there's a separate, oh, maybe it's just a motion. Now you're making me think. Okay, I have to look into that.
Either way, I think these are good discussions for first reading. Did you have anything else, Councillor Patience?
I have a note here because there was that the principal amount of the outstanding debt as of December 31st, 2024, you have noted here. And just because we're in 2026, I don't know if this is a bank issue or not, Chris. So this is part of bylaw 2003. Should those figures be the 2025 figures? And I'm not sure that's significant in any way, but I just asked the question.
because it doesn't affect our credit limit with Alberta Capital Finance Authority. I don't think it does. And we haven't had our debenture limit audited yet this year for 2025, so I can't really update it until it's approved.
All right, thank you. Councillor Orr?
Some of the questions that I had have already been spoken to, but I would be looking for just a little more clarity. I'm looking at the whereas statements at the beginning of the proposed bylaw. And as I read the one that speaks of the $2 million line of credit, not to exceed 25 years. So I'm wondering, so I'm assuming we've got this 25-year line of credit pursuant to this bylaw, and say someone comes along at year 15, and I also believe I heard you say that we will finance someone over a 25-year period. So if the line of credit lasts for 25 years, but someone comes at year 15 and we're going to finance them for 25 years, those timelines don't line up. And as well, just an added question, could you clarify, and perhaps I've missed it, but could you clarify how we arrive at what the principal amount of payment will be? I mean, we've spoken of them covering the interest that's accruing on our line of credit, and then it's going to be neutral. But how are you going to structure the payment of principal? If someone wants 5 years, can we structure it that way, or 10 years? How will you structure that?
So I guess I'll try to answer the whole 25-year term that we've got in our bylaw for our line of credit. Line of credits really don't have a term. They run forever with however long.
I realize
Yeah,
that.
I know.
But
I'm just wondering, before we go too far, it might be good to also have Alberta municipalities come down again and clarify the program. So I think it's been a long time since we've done that, and it might be good for both administration and council to have that done, just to make sure that we're actually following. Yeah, it's not an easy program to run, and I'm just wondering if Alberta municipalities can help us sort through it a little more.
And our rep is Stephanie Ripley, so that's Bob and Linda Ripley's daughter. She's our rep with Alberta municipalities, and we worked together on the bylaw. Stephanie's looked at it, reviewed it, but I think maybe it wouldn't hurt. I mean, the whole thing around the 25 years versus it's a line of credit versus if somebody jumps on at year 15, like Councillor Orr said, what kind of impact does that have on the bylaw itself? So, I mean, we can ask Stephanie to come down. I think it would be a good idea for council to get just an overview of the program, talk to the person who runs the program from out of Edmonton. She could even probably Zoom in. She wouldn't have to drive down, but I'm sure she'd like to see her mom and dad. And so structuring the principal part of the debt, I can get to that. So if somebody comes in and says, I want a $10,000 loan and I want to pay it back over 10 years. So we would take the line of credit out, pay for the improvement, or the improvement, I suppose. And that $10,000 would sit there, and then we would charge them $1,000 plus interest the first year. We would pay back their $1,000. And then the next year they would have $9,000 worth of principal. It would accrue interest. We would charge them their $1,000. We'd pay back the $1,000. So I would keep the accounting on the line of credit in line with what is happening on the other side on their tax statements. So I would do the accounting for it to ensure that we're not paying too much interest on our end, or I'm not sure what other concerns you have, David. Sorry.
Okay, and I know this is just first reading. There'll be lots of time for other conversation, but I'll throw this out. I went through the responses that were obtained through the survey that the environmental committee did, and they were largely negative. And I think one of the overriding concerns was that, the taxpayers shouldn't be paying for someone's individual improvement to their. Now, I know that there's a misunderstanding of what is the intent and that individual tax, or that the community is not paying for someone's improvement. But it does hammer home the point that this would have to be a zero cost to the overall tax base. The individuals that benefit from this would need to cover all of the costs associated with it. And I know that it's requires that we pay a $15,000 fee to Alberta Muni to cover their administration. And even though you say it's not going to be that difficult, it's not going to take that much time, it's already taken time, and it's going to take more time. And that is time that we are expending for those select few who access the program. And so I would think we would need to come up with a basic administration fee at the outset that they can also finance, but to help offset the administration costs that we will have in administering such a program. And that way we can go to the taxpayers who don't access this program and say, you're not paying for their benefit. I think that's something to consider.
So it's been a while since I took a really in-depth look at this program. We've been working on it for a while, and I just kind of did a quick review of it tonight before I brought it for first reading. But there is the applicant does get charged by Alberta Munis a 5% admin fee, and I don't want to misspeak, but I think it gets split. So I think Alberta Munis keeps 50% and the town gets 50%. I think. I'm just gonna say that because it's, well, I might have made up that fact, but I think that's what I read. So I think we're okay, but I think you should probably hear that from Stephanie Ripley, who's in charge of the program.
Mayor Frater.
Councillor
And just looking at the 10%, Chris, that you have on here, that it shall not exceed 10%. Having done these in the past, I believe that's a number that you select, that no one's told you have to put 10% in there. Am I correct at that?
Yeah, it's kind of the number that we use in our debentures too for interest. We just throw in the round number of 10%, not to exceed 10%. So
I might suggest, because this is 25 years, and I know where prime is today, but we're living in a pretty strange world at the moment. And you might want to increase that to 20%, just to protect the taxpayer in case somehow prime does hit 8 or 9 or 10 or 12%. Then we're not having to foot the bill for the remaining percentage. It costs us nothing to type in a 20 instead of a 10, if that makes any sense.
yeah, it's fine with me. I don't think anyone's going to be scared if that number is high, because we will charge them prime. We will charge them the rate that we're paying on our line of credit.
Very good. So yeah, a very complex one. I think it takes, it's been taking some time to figure out. I see the value in such a program on one hand. On the other hand, it's, is it worth that benefit? The Environment Committee has been pushing for this, so it's would be good for the Environment Committee rep to also convey some of the complexities and discuss some of that with them as well. So, motion is on the floor for first reading. We'll bring it back at a further date. In the meantime, if anyone has any questions that they'd like answered, please direct them to our CAO and Director of Finance, and we can go from there. So, if everyone is good for discussion and debate tonight, I will call it the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Moving on to bylaw 2017, regional assessment review. Oops, sorry, entity level risk control. And our Director of Finance would like to present the audit controls.
Hates me. Thank you, Mayor Fader. So the second item on your agenda tonight from the council is our entity level risk control. This is a document that we provide to the auditors every year at the onset of our financial audit. It is a document that discusses our entity level risk control, which is under your duties to ensure that the entity in general has enough risk control. So we try to detail it out in our document for the auditors. We have reviewed it. Hasn't been much to change, except we've had some change in counselors, so we had to change some of the information about who sits on our council for this year. Both the CAO and I have reviewed it, and we don't have anything to add, but if council has questions about what's in the document or want some clarification, Anthony and I would be happy to help.
All right, anyone prepared to make a motion for approval of the entity level risk control as presented? Councillor Monteith makes a motion. Any further discussion or debate on the controls? Councillor Monteith?
Says the town council has a code of conduct, but I believe we're not allowed to have that anymore.
All right, a minor edit. Any other comments, questions?
Just one quick one. if I
Councillor
might, Mayor
Patience?
Vader. So having dealt with this in the past in my other life, and this may not be relevant, Chris, and I certainly don't mean anything by it, but I had a very small finance staff, and at one point I actually had to review the bank reconciliations because the people that were reviewing it were the people that were doing the deposits and the AP and AR accounting. So do we have any check and balance for review of our bank recs?
So we have a segregation of duties in the office. We have enough people. So I reconcile the bank. Anthony approves the bank reconciliation, and then I post the bank reconciliation. And I actually have to provide for any kind of journal entries that we do. This is just like fun information for you all. When I do adjusting journal entries, I have to present them to Anthony every month. He has to review them, approve them, give them back to me, and sign off that he has approved them, the date and the time he's approved them. It has to be after I gave them to him. And then I can post them and print off my report and put it with everything to show that I didn't overstep my my purview as Director of Finance.
Thank you. I actually appreciate that, and I actually scoped the document to see if it was in there, and it wasn't, and it was just something I'd hit in the past, so.
Oh, very good. Thank you very much. CEO Burdett?
Just a comment on the how legitimate that process is. Chris gave me an adjusting journal entry last week, and it got piled up in my inbox, and she came to me today hunting for it because her system, she doesn't enter the batch until she actually gets back the signed copy. So she didn't have all the entries were in kind of draft until I have approved it. And so, yeah, so she's sticking to her processes.
Very good. So motion is on the floor to approve the controls as presented. I'm assuming that's a minor edit, if there is anything regarding the code of conduct. So motion is on the floor, called the question, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Now to bylaw 2017, regional assessment review, and our CEO, Anthony Burdett. Would you present this?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Before you have bylaw 2017 for the Regional Assessment Review Board. Now this is entirely put together by our friends at ORSC for our approval and review. As you can see in the package, we've approved the Regional Assessment Review Board for the past number of years. I think included is 2016 and 2021. For any councilors who don't know or those at home, the Assessment Review Board is for those complaints and concerns that residents might have with their assessment, and they come in and they make their case before the board, and the board has the authority to say yay or nay based on their complaint. And so we have to pass a bylaw so that they have the authority to do so because our mill rates and our property taxes are set by bylaw. Tonight, the recommendation is in that bylaw 2017, being a bylaw of the town of Fort Macleod in the province of Alberta for the purpose of establishing a regional assessment review board. The appointment of the chair and the appointment of the clerk for the assessment review board is hereby given first reading, and we would request that it be given second and third reading as well. If council has any questions or concerns, I would gladly try to answer those.
I will ask for a motion from council for first reading of bylaw 2017. Councilor Boisterous makes a motion. Any discussion on bylaw 2017, its purpose, or any such of the bylaw itself? I assume all the communities are doing this identically. Councilor Monteith?
So this is no different than we've done before, right?
In spirit is the same. They have highlighted some of the changes to the agreement on the third page of the package. They've identified some of the areas that they needed to enhance to better give them the authority and ability to manage according to the MGA. And so there are a number of, I'm not going to go through them because there are a few there, but they've given a few areas in which they have improved and updated this bylaw. But in spirit, yes, it's still the same, to give them the authority and the ability to act as the review board.
Any other question or discussion? Motion for first readings on the floor. If there's no further debate, call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. I will request a motion from council to go to second reading on bylaw 2017. Councilor Orr makes the motion. If there's no further debate or discussion, we'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. I'll request a motion from council to be able to proceed to third reading, which needs unanimous consent. I'm prepared to make that motion. Councilor Patel makes that motion. I will call that to question. All those in favor? Unanimously carried. And requesting a motion for third reading in bylaw 2017. Councilor Fox makes the motion. We'll call that to question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. The bylaw is passed. Next in our agenda, we have a number of administrative reports, and typically we get these once a quarter, and it's an opportunity to be able to highlight some of the activities. I typically go through and ask each of the directors to read their full reports from front to back. No, I don't. Just some highlights, if you may. Some of the things that stood out to you in the last quarter that you think council should be interested in. And yeah, we'll start with our CEO, Anthony Burdett.
Now, I will first draw council's attention to the council motion list. I would prefer to do my CEO report last because I often steal everyone else's thunder and take all the good stuff because we work closely with the other directors. But the council motion list is also included there just to demonstrate to council where we are in a number of items. Administration works diligently to accomplish the motions that have been given to us in a timely fashion. I know for a while there we had some pretty old ones, kind of stagnant, whether, some of them were complex, some of them just took longer. But currently I feel like administration is doing a really good job on making sure that we're taking them from, idea to motion to completion. And so I want to thank my staff for all the hard work they're doing because I think really this is where the rubber meets the road, right? Where we take council's initiatives and actually get some progress done. So big thank you to staff and administration and to council for, giving us clear direction and supporting us in that. So just wanted to say that. If there were any questions about the motion list, I can address those if there's anything. And if not,
we'll go on to our
Danny.
Economic Development Coordinator.
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Good evening. I'd like to highlight an exciting new tourism initiative that Fort Macleod is now part of. We joined Savour Alberta South this past quarter. We're an official community partner. Savor Alberta South is a regional tourism initiative that promotes food and beverage trails from along Highway 3. So they go from Medicine Hat to Waterton, and the participating communities include Medicine Hat, Tabor, Lethbridge, the South Canadian Rockies, Waterton, and now Fort Macleod. So this project encourages Albertans and visitors to explore local destinations along Highway 3 by following curated food and beverage trails throughout the region. So Stronghold Brewing is participating in their Highway 3 Ale Trail, and Homestead Bake Shop participated in the Farm to Fork campaign this past November. These food and beverage trails will showcase the incredible businesses that we have here in town, as well as attract additional visitors to our community. That's all I'd like to touch on. Thank you.
Any questions anyone might have regarding the quarterly reports? I was curious on what the Township Road 90 lot was. Where is Township Road 90 again?
That's that 135 acre
Okay.
piece.
Okay. Very good. Any other comments, questions on our economic development coordinator's quarterly reports? No questions, no comments? Nicely done. Thank you very much. Moving on to finance. Chris Holback.
Thank you, Mayor Fader. Not much is going on with me last quarter. I was on holiday quite a bit, trying to get my holiday time down. But this is my quarter, so there'll be lots to talk about on the next one. It's audit and budget and mill rates. It's my season. Thank you.
Any questions for Chris on her extensive report? Director of Operations, Brendan?
So a couple highlights that I'd like to touch on. So we were closing out the year on a lot of projects, a lot of things that we were working on throughout our different departments around town. One thing in safety, we have been working quite a bit on our safety program. We did have OH&S come and do some audits of the town office arena, the plants, and throughout our documentation. And all notices to produce and all reports were completed and closed out. So we felt some stress, and then that went away. So that was good, and we're continuing to push in that area. I've also put on there some of our major projects, and I know that we've talked about them. And so if there's any questions, kind of where we're sitting, but we closed out quite a few as we moved away from the construction season. And we'll be ramping up in some of our projects, kind of doing the tenders and stuff like that at the beginning of this year, and we can talk some more about where those are going. Public Works, doing public works things. One thing that we did want to touch on, or that I thought was interesting, we did have a couple staff members that were on medical leave, and so we were short some people as we went through. There wasn't any on-work incident. One was a personal thing, and another one got hurt on his personal time. But just kind of looking at how we juggled around the public works as we worked with our team there. With plants, I think it was summed up today. I was talking to the plants guys, and someone came in from the public, and we were talking to them, and they're like, my water's still good. It still tastes good. You're doing a good job. So I think water and wastewater are doing well. Planning and development, a lot of details in there as far as what we have done for different development permits. So if there's any questions, we can look at that. But again, just focused on what actually goes through that department. Sometimes we don't see that if it's not out of the normal, but there's a lot of process that has taken place and a lot of, I guess, detail that's looked at to make sure that we are following our land use bylaw. Parks and facilities, doing some good work as far as cleaning up things, changing from seasons, shutting down the swimming pool, opening up the arena, working with those different user groups and making sure that things are moving smooth, as well as kind of closing out the irrigation and clean up those things in the park. And then finally, we do have an Appendix A, just the service tracker. So if there's any questions, we can look at some details. The service tracker is essentially a program that we track any issues, and that can be coming from internally with administration, things that we need to follow up on, but also externally, the residents. There is a link on our website that they can, if they have issues, they can put those in, and then we can get that information. We can interact with them directly through there. So those are the numbers there as far as the things that were closed out through that quarter.
Very nice. Any questions for the Director of Operations, Councillor Monteith?
Not a happy subject to bring up, but are we equipped to know ahead of time where we're going to have a problem like Calgary had? Like, are there things in place that would prevent that, or is it haphazard?
So we do have, and I guess we're working on a couple things. We are working on an asset management that will be digitalized. So we're working with ORSC on that, so that we have details of kind of the age of our assets, what's going on there. We also started last year, and we had a company come in, EnviroTrace, and so we were essentially listening for leaks in our water systems, those kinds of things that we can then try to get ahead of. So we started that this year. We aren't looking to have them come back in, but we are looking to action on some of the items that they said were problems. So we're doing a little bit of justification as far as, okay, you told us this is what it was. Can we go into the ground? Can we find that and can we fix it? So we are trying to maintain and to operate in that realm where we are looking ahead. And then as well, some of the things that we do annually for our sewer systems and those kinds of things is to do some scoping. We are doing some relining, and we have that program in place. And so we are trying to look at our assets, look at the full scope of that, and take care of what we at least know or what we can find out is causing us the biggest problems.
Just in that, Chris, when's the asset management plan going to be finished?
So I have been looking at that. We do have some information. We have several systems right now that we're trying to bring into one system with ORSC. So we are pulling all the data that we do have. We're also working in conjunction with some of our master plans as far as the water and wastewater. So we're looking at that. We were hopeful that we could start moving on that in 2025. We've been talking to ORSC. They have updated their software and their hardware, and we are pushing to get the information so that we can actually do the move over and look at that in the 2026 timeframe. I don't have a firm schedule for that for you, but that's what we're pushing towards.
I've freed up all of 2026 for this. Asset management is 2026 for us, so poor Brennan.
No vacation for you, is that what you're saying? Councillor Orr?
Just to follow up to that question, if I were asked by a fellow citizen of Fort Macleod, so what is the condition of our, I hear all this news in Calgary and what's going on, and basically the same question that Councillor Monteith has just asked. How would I answer that in terms of what's the status of our underground utilities, water, sewer? Would you say that, we're pretty good? Would you say that we're scrambling to make sure things don't break? I know we're not there, but I'm just saying, can you give a general explanation or a general factor that would suggest where we're at in terms of where our underground utilities are at?
I guess one of the things that I'm looking for when looking at this asset management and doing the master plans is to get a more transparent view of where that is. So I have been asked by other councillors, what's our ranking? Where's our worst stuff? What are we working on? How are we organizing that? So we are looking at that, and that's part of what we want to try and bring out. We do have a really good team, and when we're talking about water and sewer, those kinds of things, from our public works, it was, I guess, just if you'll let me, just a little while ago, we were I was talking to the Public Works crew, and I was talking to the new guy, and he's like, yeah, you know, this is where we're at. I'm like, okay, well, what does the new guy mean? He's like, yeah, I've only been here for about 5 years. We have a lot of depth in our Public Works. There's a lot of knowledge there. But what we're trying to do is pull that knowledge and get it so that it's transparent, so that we can have, you know, when council asks these questions, then I can go there, and I can say, okay, where's our list? What does this look like? What's the plan moving forward? So that's where we're trying to get. We do have some good knowledge, but it's, I guess, if you're asked that question and you have specific questions, if you want to send them to Anthony or myself, then I would have to do some research. We could look into that and get some of those details, but it's not at my fingertips. Like I said, we are trying to look at both with Public Works and with plants. We're looking at water loss. We're looking at where that can be. We're trying to find systems so that we can be continually looking at those things. And we're trying to take steps forward in those areas and get that digitized, but that's where we are right now.
And I want to say I appreciate the effort that's being made on that front. I know that this has been in the works for a number of years where we simply weren't able to say, and I'm thrilled that the process is in the works, that you're making steps towards that. And it's a mammoth undertaking. And so I appreciate that it's, the undertaking has been undertaken. And hopefully in 2026, we'll start to see some greater details so that we can answer those questions knowledgeably.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Orr. Any other questions on the Director of Operations report? If not, Community Services.
Thank you and good evening, Council. I'm going to go back to November, the end of November, and do a shout out and a highlight for Moonlight Madness and the parade. It was the 42nd annual Santa Claus Parade. Both were very, very cold night, cold morning, but despite the cold, there was still a good number of people that turned out for the burgers that council gave away for community dinner. 250 hot dogs, 300 hamburgers were served. We had the grads of the 26th grad year helping and volunteering with that, so that was great. There was just over 30 grads that showed up that night to help volunteer, so that was a good interaction with them. And then a shout out to the Chamber for planning the event and just making sure that it happens. And then for the parade committee, again, you know, it's kind of a come together group that it's quiet, and then all of a sudden it's weekly meetings for a bit, and then the wonderful parade happens and we settle down for a bit, and it's all good. So again, the parade happened, no incidents or anything, one minor little incident on a private property, but outside of that there was no major things. Shout out to the Public Works Department for all their help in getting the town ready for Christmas and the holiday season. You'll notice that all of the Main Street lights, as well as down by the post office and the bank, have the new Christmas lights or holiday lights, whichever you'd like to call them. So those are on. They put up the tree lights every year for us, and they try and wait as long as they can so that we don't get wind damage to them, which has happened a few years. But yeah, they do a great amount of work for us, and so it's very much appreciated and just helps the town and the parade run smoothly. I do also want to just highlight a couple of things from our bylaw enforcement office. I don't have the numbers directly in front of me, but I do know that we more than doubled dog licenses this year and the number of tags that were sold and animals that were registered. So I bring that down to Steve's ability to engage with the community. He does really good on his Facebook posts and getting the word out there, reminding people to license their animals, and just out there talking to people and engaging with people, and you know, providing that education component to them. He's really looking forward to working towards that trap, neuter, and return program for cats, and so we'll be bringing that back to you with some more details in the next coming months. But that's one of the things that he's looking forward to working with too, and I just want to give him a little bit of a shout out as well, because we've had some hard years with dogs roaming and everything, and the last year has been relatively quiet. I may have jinxed us now, but it's been a good program, and Steve's been a big part of the success of that, so I just want to give that shout out to him.
Very good. Any other follow-up questions, comments? Councillor Monteith.
I know I should know this, but when is the Scout Hall going to be renovated?
I believe that's going to be a decision of council during budget deliberations.
Thank you very much. Councillor Patience?
Yeah, Lisa, somewhere reading background information after I was elected, and I bring this up in reference to the spay and neuter program. Did I read somewhere that council was reviewing, looking at a cap bylaw?
It's a piece of discussion that does come up quite often. We go back and forth on it. Administration still recommends not having one. They're hard to enforce. They're not super effective. Good pet owners are still good pet owners and take care of their animals, and a bylaw doesn't necessarily change that. There are some positives to it, but it is a discussion that happens quite a bit. If council wants to revisit it, we can certainly have that discussion again. But I think we had some great success with the last TNR program that helps with the feral cat population, but it does not help with the people that just let their pets wander and do the neighborly deeds that they do. But
Understand that cats they're very ambitious when it comes to reproduction. So I only asked because I know I had read it somewhere and I wasn't sure if that was something that was on the council's purview. If it wasn't, so I just brought it up based on that piece there. So thank you for your answer.
Monsieur Burdette, did you have follow-up comments to the Scout Hall?
Can you hear me? So the Scouts Hall was on the capital budget. Looking at the costs on that, we did, I believe, push it into the 2027 year. So it is still there. We did some initial checks on that and what that would cost. But yeah, that's where it sits right now.
Well, that's our community. Hey, Monsieur Burdette, you wanted to follow up on any of your report?
I would just like to highlight one item because I've recognized it as a significant success. Actually, one of my favorite successes of my 4 years here. And it just quietly came and nobody noticed. And that's how it should be because I was able to recognize it through our negotiations and through our collective agreement. And then again, through our performance evaluations at the year end. I've been able to see when you look at it from the 4 years, like we've seen a significant change in culture and in employee satisfaction and, employees feeling as part of the team. We are not at the finish line, and those types of things, you're never at the finish line. You have to keep working on it. But I do think that we have been putting a lot of effort into improving the culture and improving the atmosphere when it comes to inside staff, outside staff, union, non-union, and bridging those gaps. And, they're baby steps, and I owe a lot to my directors and the work that they're doing. But when I have seen where we were when I got here 4 years ago to where we are now, it is night and day, right? We still have work to do, but night and day difference. And it's a wonderful place to work. We have wonderful staff, and we're kind of getting to the point where, we've let go of some of that history, some of the bumps in the road that we had to go over, or that that were in the past, and we're doing great work and we're moving forward. And it seems that people are getting along at a level that is very appreciated.
That's very good to hear. Thank you for sharing. Very good. So perhaps a motion to accept the administrative reports as have been presented. Is anyone prepared to make the motion? Councillor Patience. If there are no further comments or questions, I'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. And then I'll request a motion to go in camera for one item. Councillor Fox makes the motion to go in camera. Call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. We are in closed session.